All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the Committee of the Whole meeting for August 8th, 2022. Let the record reflect a starting time of 5:30. And with that said, Clerk Boak, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Hussein,
Here.
Councilmember Wood,
Here.
Councilmember Spatafor, Councilmember Spitzley,
Here.
Councilmember Garza,
Here.
Councilmember Jackson, Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Councilmember Daniels.
Present.
7 members present. You have a quorum of committee.
All right, that takes us very quickly. We received correspondence from City TV at just about 5 o'clock tonight. So just shortly before the meeting, and that's why you saw some of the commotion you saw up here, and maybe some of the frustration. And we had learned that the city's Ustream link is not working and has not been working maybe for a few days. My understanding is that everything else is still working, and that we are now streaming live on the city's YouTube channel. Is that correct, Ms. DeCessa?
Yes, sir.
That is correct. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilwoman Spitzley.
Thank you, Mr. President. How did we provide the residents with notice of this?
They did not. I did talk to the mayor's office about 10 minutes ago because we only learned about this just a few minutes ago. And I did ask that they put out a press release as City TV is within the office of the mayor and not City Council.
I have one more question.
Yes, Councilwoman Spitzley.
So we knew about this a couple days ago. They knew about it a couple days ago, and there has been no press release saying that it will not be available to the public on City TV. Is that correct?
This information is just about as new for me as it is you. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they've been working through issues the last few days. I believe they thought they'd have it worked out, and unfortunately did not have it worked out prior to tonight's meeting. Is that correct, Mrs. DeCessa?
That's my understanding, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Absolutely. Vice President Wood?
Thank you, and this is to the administration. I would hope in the future that a decision would be made by noon, 1 o'clock at the very latest, so that we can make sure that we can relay this information to the public. Right now, we're receiving a great deal of requests for special accommodations. We have stressed the fact that these are the ways that you currently have to view and be part of the process. And so I just want to make sure that, that we're not doing things again at the last minute, that we're not receiving this information at 5 minutes to 5, and then scrambling our staff to try to get information out to our agenda people that we send out the council agendas to. I just think that we have to have some type of protocol in the future that says if we don't have something worked out by this point, we're going to point B and we're getting that information out.
All right. Is that clear? Seeing heads nod, thank you. Vice President Wood on the meeting minutes from July 25th, 2022.
I would move the July 25th minutes as written.
Sure, there's a motion on the floor for the discussion. Just very quickly, you will see reflected in those minutes information regarding the Board of Water and Lights rules of governance, their procedure. And if you recall, there was a motion by Vice President Wood for myself and law. As a matter of fact, I worked with Lisa Hagan from the City Attorney's Office, who always does a fantastic job supporting us. But in any event, we did draft a letter as requested by this body that essentially enshrines or takes into account the issues that we had. We sent that back, and that is in front of them for their review. So with that being said, there is a motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That takes us to public comment on agenda items. We do have one discussion item tonight. We have a presentation, and then we actually have 4 resolutions for action. So again, public comment can involve any of those issues. You will have up to 3 minutes to address the body. We simply ask that you state your first and last name, for the record. And with that being said, come on down.
Good evening, council persons. My name is Elaine Bischoff, and I am a Lansing resident of Ward 2.
Can I stop you real quick? Maybe stop our time. If you want to just pull that microphone down just a little bit,
okay.
we're having a hard time hearing you. Thank you.
My name is Elaine Fishoff, and I am a Lansing resident of Ward 2. I would like to speak to you about item 7H on the COW agenda, a discussion of fiscal year 2023-2024 budget priorities. As it stands, this proposed resolution lists 5 very worthy items that have been deemed by the council as the means to ensure quality of life, the council's mission. However, one glaring omission in the statement of budget priorities and policies is any mention of climate change, global warming, or accelerating greenhouse gas emissions. To truly ensure quality of life, it is paramount for government at all levels, including the city level, to adopt policies and practices that will slow climate change, reduce and reverse global warming, and eliminate greenhouse gas emissions that are the cause of both. The very last item of the resolution does mention reducing the city's carbon footprint, but other relevant items do not reflect opportunities to do so. For instance, 3 items before the last one mentioned lists updating and improving the fleet, but makes no mention of transitioning from greenhouse gas emitting gasoline and diesel to no emission electric or green hydrogen for fuel. To address this important need, I propose that the council consider adding a 6th item necessary to ensure quality of life in Lansing. I propose recognizing that there is a climate emergency that requires the city to transition to sustainable policies and spending that will require transitioning from climate warming fossil fuels to enough clean energy and energy efficiency for the city to be carbon neutral by no later than 2050. And to help the council plot its path to sustainability and carbon neutrality, I suggest creating a board or commission for that purpose, serving the council. If Lansing isn't going to start stepping up to do its part in the fiscal year ending 2024, 2 years from now, just when will it?
Thank you, Ms. Fishoff. Do we have others? All right, come on down.
Loretta Stanaway, and I want to talk about the 2 ballot proposals to annex properties from Lansing Township into the city of Lansing. As it stands at the present time, I cannot see a positive outcome for the citizens of Lansing in this proposal. It's definitely positive for the residents of Lansing Township, but I don't see a benefit to the city residents. The residents of Lansing Township would be bringing with them a property tax liability that is estimated to be $250,000 a year for 18 years, of which the mayor has suggested the city absorb that cost. Well, the city is us, the taxpayers, the citizens. We are absorbing everything that we can absorb and more than already. We certainly don't need another additional burden placed on us. From the assumption I'm making that the majority of the residents in Lansing Township who would be annexed over are senior citizens or retired, so their income is going to be lower. So any income tax that they bring with them is not going to be substantial. They won't be bringing a whole lot of students into the school system by the same virtue. When you're talking about largely a population of seniors and retirees, your income stream from that in any category is going to be lesser than if they were wage-earning families oriented toward putting their students into our schools, et cetera, et cetera. I think at this point, the city needs to recognize that the citizens are at a breaking point, and we're almost to the point where you have to also consider the increased demand for services that these citizens from Lansing Township would bring with them. They would need police, they would need fire, they would need snow removal, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, another burden on our systems. We're about to a point where we're gonna say, stick a fork in us, we're done. We can't go any farther. You just topped us out. And if you think you're gonna get a 30-year bond proposal, that's icing on the cake. Something so innocuous as the ballot proposal to dispose of a small portion of North Cemetery squeaked by with 184 votes to the positive, only 184 votes, largely which could be attributed to the advocacy of our friends group, because most people didn't have a clear understanding of what that would entail and had said publicly and in Facebook and Twitter and other places that they were going to vote no. until we explained to them the benefits of voting yes. The city certainly didn't make a lot of effort in that regard. So just be aware, your citizens are at a point where they're going to throw up their hands, pack up their bags, and leave.
Thank you. Do we have others? Come on down, thank you.
Bob Rue. I'm in the Groesbeck area of Lansing City. Thank you for the opportunity to speak concerning the proposed annexation of Lansing Township properties. A week ago, I pointed out to you that some of the debt owed by Lansing Township would have to be assumed by the city if this happens. I can't believe that a full financial analysis of the proposed annexation has not been produced. I repeat my 3 questions from a week ago. Number 1, exactly how much debt will Lansing have to assume to annex these areas? Number 2, how will it be paid for? Number 3, why is there absolutely no mention of the financial impact in your ballot proposals? My impression is that this whole effort has been fast-tracked without careful consideration and due diligence. I urge the council to reject these ballot proposals as insufficient and premature. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else interested in public comment? Going once, going twice, seeing none. All right, we will move on to number 5. This is a presentation regarding U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Letter of Findings for Noncompliance with CDBG Housing Rehab Requirements CDBG program. We do, in fact, have both Barb Kimmel with us as well as Brian McGrain from the Department of Economic Development and Planning. Make sure that, as always, the microphone's on. Go ahead and bring it close to you so that we can hear you. And just a little bit of lead-in. On November 12th of last year, the Department of Economic Development and Planning received a letter from the Office of Community Planning and Development. So this is actually an office that's housed in HUD. And it pertained to the city's rehabilitation processes and responsiveness to program complaints. And at that time, they had determined that the city had failed to comply with certain program requirements. They had actually, as a result, issued a letter to our Department of Economic Development and Planning. And in that letter, they actually contained 4 findings. We had actually let me back up. We did not know that this letter had been issued. We actually were made aware of it, not in the too distant past. And we immediately reached out to Brian from, again, the Department of ED&P to ask if he could come down and talk to us a little bit about the findings, a little bit about our response to those findings and what compliance looks like moving forward. We actually had him in July 11th, and he was incredibly patient. We had a very long meeting, and we were not able to actually have him come down and to address this issue. So he agreed to be with us tonight. We certainly appreciate that. And what we are looking for essentially is some information with regards to those findings, our response thus far to those findings, and then what things look like moving forward. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to you, Mr. McGrain, and then certainly we'll open it up for council comments and questions thereafter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for having me and Barb here this evening. No problem on coming back. What you do have in front of you, of course, is I think an example of routine communications we've received from HUD. HUD routinely pays monitoring visits to our office. I think you could probably characterize that as an audit. They routinely come and look at all of our programs. They do this on a periodic basis for everything. In fact, we're in the middle of closing out one of our grants as we speak. So this happens. These things come to us. They come administratively. The letter you saw from November did point out some findings. I believe you've received the 2 closeout letters. Actually, I think a singular, was it a singular or 2? It was 2 closeout letters that were issued in February. Ms. Boak, I think I did send those to you. But my apologies if those did not come. We're happy to share those. We take these sorts of things seriously. Yeah, they're in the packet. Perfect. We take these things seriously. When HUD suggests, you could improve here, you could do a policy. Barb and her team are the ones that create those, and in this case, via some back and forth with our HUD field reps, we did put those in place. And I think again, you have the 2 letters demonstrating from February of 22. Those findings are closed out.
All right, Vice President Wood.
I think what we're looking for is for you to go through the findings and then explain, because again, the public is listening to this as well. We might have the document in front of us, but if you could go through what some of the corrective actions were and explain those to us.
Absolutely. We can run through each one and just let you know again what they suggested and what we've done to close that one out. And I'll turn that over to Barb.
Thank you.
Hi. So finding number one had to do with rehabilitation, written policies, and procedures. And we did close out that finding.
Could you talk to us a little bit about what the issue was?
Of
and
course.
how we actually, again, how we responded and how we had that actually closed out?
Absolutely. So the review exposed relaxed oversight as well as regarding complaints reviewed. Evaluating the quality of work should be conducted prior to considering the work complete and contractor payment. The management of the grantees' single-family owner-occupied rehab program should be structured in a manner to show capable staff completing tasks proficiently. The HUD felt we did not have sufficient policies and procedures in place to manage the program efficiently. So they requested that we have policies and procedures to carry out each requirement applicable to the rehab program. And that they be updated or developed and adopted to include procedures for unforeseen situations as well. And they also wanted policies and procedures to include annual staff training, contractor and subrecipient training, the frequency of solicitation for pre-qualifying contractors, tracking poor performing contractors with clear resolutions or penalties. So that's what they were looking for. And we did indeed update our
Yeah, and so.
policies and
And so,
procedures.
again, for transparency, I think what we're looking for, you outlined, I think, the issues, but I'm not certain, and again, I apologize if I'm missing anything, because I'm still dealing with city TV issues, streaming issues, and whether or not links are posted where they need to be posted. That being said, did you talk about what we did to actually rectify the issue?
Absolutely. I was just getting to that.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, We reviewed the policies, or we reviewed our policies, and then we updated and/or produced new policies and sent them to HUD for review.
For that particular finding is?
For that particular finding,
All
yes.
right. All right, let's take a couple questions. Councilwoman Spitzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I understand that, I guess, could you tell me what you've changed in your policies for procurement, contractor selection, dispute resolution? And I ask because, you know, there's a rather vocal person who is saying that they've tried to do everything they can to go through the process because they have some disputes with some work that's been done on their home, and they haven't, you know, they haven't been able to get any satisfactory response from the office. And so I'm curious as to what you've done to change your procurement for contract selection and dispute resolution. I mean, what are the things, did you have to put in, let me back up. Did you have to establish a policy or procedure, or did you have to amend the one that you already have?
I believe we amended what we already had. And, well, there was some implementation and some updating. We did update a policy and procedure for solicitation of contractors. We institute a policy of contractor orientation and ongoing training for contractors, where we offer quarterly contractor meetings and work to educate contractors regarding the rules of the program and what our expectations are, as well as what the expectations of the homeowners are. We also instituted a contractor complaint policy, procedure, and practice, which works to help, well, it works to guide us through when we get different types of complaints. In other words, there are responses for complaints about workmanship, methods, and materials. And then there are also responses to complaints about communication from the contractor and also the time of performance, the time the contractor spends on the job or spends not on the job. Also, track 3, complaints about job site behavior as well. If contractors or their workers or subcontractors are not behaving properly on the job sites. This is a multifaceted approach. There's a first offense, second offense, third offense, and a procedure for tracking ongoing complaints, and also clear, I guess, punishments for ongoing issues, up to and including dismissal from the program.
Not a problem. Councilman Brown.
Thank you, Council President. Good to see you. I had the privilege to sit with you for quite some time, and I really appreciate all the explanation over this program, excuse me. And so, with me being new on council, I had a few questions relating to, we have this and the findings of what you're explaining. But my question was, how long have this program been in existence, is the first question. Second is, how do we have findings? Is this like a continual thing where we've had these same problems, or have the standards changed?
So the program has been in existence in one form or another since the 1970s. So this is the Community Development Block Grant Program. And so HUD will come in once a year, twice a year, depending, and they will choose and monitor a program that we receive funds for. So they could be coming in and monitoring CDBG, they could be monitoring home, they could be monitoring ESG, they could be monitoring our Lead Safe Lansing program. There's a variety of programs that they could be monitoring. When they come in, they will choose certain issues, and they have a set parameter that they work with when they're looking at whatever they've decided they are going to look at. For instance, it could be that they come in and they look at procurement for the home program, and then they'll come in and they'll look at all of the procurement documents for the last several years. And so then they would issue findings or concerns, or a combination of findings or concerns that we would then need to respond to in writing. And sometimes responding in writing is finding information and providing that information to HUD. Sometimes it is the development or updating of policies and procedures. It just kind of depends on what they're looking for to make corrections to the program. And so have there been issues? I mean, CDBG has been monitored many times over the last 25 years since I've been here. I don't know if I'm prepared to say whether or not we've been monitored on these same issues in the past. That's not something that I know.
That was my question. Thank you so much.
Okay, and so just to be clear, with regards to the Office on Community Review and Planning, they had 4 findings. 2 have been closed out, correct?
They've all been closed out.
Oh, you said all 4 have been closed out?
Yes, they've all been closed out.
But we have closeout letters on only 2.
Yes.
Is that correct?
You should have closeout letters on all 4.
Okay.
Let me, there are 2 letters, each closing out 2 of the issues.
Okay. All right. Got it. Okay. All right. Perfect. And at this point, just in terms of council comments, where we are at is we have discussed finding number one and closeout efforts. And so if the questions pertain to finding number one and closeout efforts, please feel free to ask them at this point. We have, I believe, Councilman Daniels. Oh, perfect. Councilwoman Wood.
Every year, we go through the process of approving the CBG budget. I would have hoped that when we go through that process, if there's an issue out there, as we're going through it, that council would be informed about the fact that HUD is looking at something. That doesn't necessarily mean that the department is doing something wrong or that it cannot be corrected. But I would think for this body that is approving a budget and responsible for that, not having this information, then if we were asked, if HUD came to us as the body that approves the budget and said, were you aware of? Our response is one of those that I hate to give. No, council wasn't aware of that. So I would hope that as we, and again, I work with federal dollars every single day. I understand the fact that when they come to monitor and some of the things that they ask, and some of them are just simply a matter of the way you've defined something and how they've defined something differently. But for us to have received this from a constituent versus from the department is concerning to me, especially again, when we're asked to approve the budget. What we're doing is approving everything that you're doing. And if there are things out here that says that there needs to be some corrections, we're not aware of that. So that's my first comment. In looking at the complaint process that you talked about, that you have instituted, in tracking that, and I know some of the comments that you've made previously about the fact that not having enough contractors and not having enough people that are willing to bid on these things, I understand that is a problem. But to have someone that is consistently having difficulties with their work product for us as a city, and we might not think that there's a problem, but the residents that are receiving this believe that there is. In saying that there's 1, 2, 3 strikes, before something's done, what are we doing? Are we setting aside a portion of their payment that we won't pay until we make sure that everything's been checked off the checkoff list? What are we doing with this?
It's true that we do not make final payment until all of the work has been approved, not only by our office, but by the building safety office and by homeowners as well.
So the homeowners are also signing off?
The homeowners are indeed signing off, yes. Mm-hmm. They sign off on final payment and they sign off on partial payment as well.
Okay. Now, what is the guarantee process for the work? Is it 30 days, 60 days, a year?
The warranty is a 1-year warranty on workmanship, and then sometimes there are additional warranties when it comes to product installation or product, right? For instance, a shingle might have a lifetime warranty.
Okay. So I signed off as a property owner. Building safety signed off. You've signed off. And 6 months down the line, the doors are falling off the new cupboards that were installed. How do you rectify that situation?
We request that the contractor go out and make warranty repairs.
Okay, and if that contractor doesn't do it, how do you deal with that?
Well, we find a way to make the repairs. If the contractor refuses to act within the warranty period, he's no longer going to be working for our program, but we will find a way to make the repairs so that the homeowner gets what the homeowner paid for.
And how many contractors have we had that we have said that their work was unsatisfactory?
Oh, God, you mean over the years? Are you looking for just a period of time? It happens, and I would say lately it's happening more frequently because of the fact that we're having such a difficult time getting contractors. But we're doing everything that we can to ensure that the workmanship is high-quality workmanship. The people that are in our office, the rehabilitation specialists, they do not accept work at your home or the public's home that they would not accept at their own home.
And what are, and maybe you want me to wait until we get to finding 4 where it's talking more about the contractor, because I have some additional
Yeah,
questions.
just for efficiency, so if, I'm not seeing other hands, if we can transition to finding number 2, which is failure to monitor rental projects, I'd appreciate it.
Right, so finding number 2, failure to monitor rental projects. This was definitely an issue for our office. We have, HUD requested corrective action. They request that we monitor all rental units under the affordability requirements within 30 days of the letter. We were about 45 days, so we worked very hard and got everything taken care of, and it is closed out.
Can I stop you very quickly? Councilwoman Spitzley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Barb, it would be helpful if we just had a little background information about the program. I mean, I see it, and it says the grantee shall monitor all rental units are under the affordability requirements. And so for people at home and for me, could you just kind of explain to me what that program is?
I sure can. So when the city of Lansing invests CDBG or home funds into, or NSP funds, or whatever funding it may be, into a rental property, there are affordability periods. For home, there is a required affordability period. For NSP, there's required affordability periods. Those affordability periods are directly related to the amount of money that was invested in each unit, and these are for rental properties. So a new
and so those are, I'm sorry, those are for rental properties that are owned by the city of Lansing?
We are not, no.
I know,
That's right.
That's what I'm getting at, because, you know, someone could
Right.
say, oh, they own 165 units, and I know we don't own
Right.
any, so I just want to be.
No,
just-
that's absolutely true. So we have a history of working with developers, both nonprofit and for-profit, investing money alongside their money to create affordable housing, and we're required to monitor those units to ensure affordability throughout the required affordability period. So if an affordability period is 15 years, then it's our responsibility to ensure that the unit itself, that the landlord is not charging more than the agreed upon rent, typically home high or home low rent, and that also the occupant qualifies income-wise for that unit. Sometimes there's a restriction at or below 60% of AMI. Sometimes there's a restriction at or below 80% of AMI. And so the affordability periods range from 5, 10, 15, up to 20 years. 20 years is the required for new construction. So, and so we were having an issue with, we had an issue with personnel time available to monitor these units. So one of the things that we did was to get some help with qualifying units, so that freed up more time for our staff to monitor rental properties. We have been in compliance, and we continue to be in compliance with rental properties.
All right. We have a few questions. Vice President Wood, then Councilman Garza.
My question with this particular one is, you said you've been monitoring. Is it that you accept the information that the landlord gives you, what is the monitoring?
What is the process that we
Yes.
go through, right? So we collect information from the tenants, or the property management company could collect information from the tenants, and they would provide that information to us, and then we will verify. There's a third-party verification that we have to go through in order to satisfy the requirements of HUD when it comes to rental monitoring. We also get copies of leases to ensure that rents are within the guidelines.
Okay? And that's done on is supposed to be done on a yearly basis.
It's supposed to be done on a yearly basis, and right now, what we're doing is trying to get all of our rental certification kind of into line so that we're beginning to do all of our rental monitoring in June of every year, so that it's just going to be a task that we focus on in the summertime.
Thank you.
All right, Councilman Garza.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening. Thanks for being here tonight. So when you go to try to find a contractor, what's the process? How do you reach out and try to find those contractors? A couple questions though. And I thought I heard you say that it's been more and more frequent that you've been getting complaints from the homeowners or the property manager, whoever it may be. How many of those contractors currently that you're working with have like 1 or 2 strikes against them? And are you letting them go longer, having more strikes because it's harder for you to find contractors at this point in time?
No. First of all, we have to follow our policy. We just instituted this policy and HUD demanded that we have steps, an incremental policy. So we have to follow the policy. I think at this point in time, there may be 2 contractors that we have worked with under the policy, possibly a third. I mean, within the last 365 days. Regarding contractor recruitment, over the last year, we've spent over $7,000 on contractor recruitment. We have done many things to recruit contractors. One of the things that we've done is to send recruitment postcards to all licensed builders in Ingham, Eaton, and Jackson counties. We have also done radio advertisement. We have advertised on social media. We have advertised on city television. I'm trying to think of, we've attended professional meetings. We've reached out to unions. That's one of the things that we did, was reach out to unions. We have flyered cars at building material retailers. We have put flyers on bulletin boards. We have cold called people. We have really tried to recruit contractors. And this is not a development office or a Lansing issue. This is an issue nationwide.
Well, thank you. And so when you talked about tracking their performance, are you sharing that with any other communities? Are there any other communities sharing that information with you, so we're weeding out the unscrupulous contractors?
Well, when we receive a contractor application, we reach out to other communities to see if they've had experience with that contractor, whether that contractor has positive or negative. We also receive and follow up on references, work references, thanks to Council Vice President Wood. We search court records and we look at the Better Business Bureau. We're doing all kinds of things to find and qualify the best contractors that we can.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any other questions regarding finding number 2? No, all right, so if we could discuss finding number 3, failure to follow dispute resolution procedures.
Right. So we had a general complaint and appeal process that we had that Dorothy Boone, who hasn't been the manager since like 2013, put into place. And HUD found that wasn't strong enough. And so we did indeed develop the new contractor complaint policy, procedure, and practice to satisfy HUD. And if I'm not mistaken, that, to respond to that finding, we may also have, well, to respond to that finding or to another finding, we also instituted quarterly contractor meetings during which we discussed issues with contractors, like I said, our expectations, education regarding policy and procedure updates, education regarding the payment process, education regarding what our expectations are.
All right. Councilwoman Spitzley, I believe I saw your hand up.
Yes, you did. Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm looking at this one, and under disposition, it says it's not clear that the required actions to close this finding has been met. Please verify the following. And so I'm trying to find the letter where you have verified that information. Did I not? And I'm not, oh, okay. Is that a different?
So this, yeah, so that would actually be part of
March.
the March letter, March 16th.
Yep, I see it right here. I see it right here. Thank you. So you just submitted that recently, and they sent you back a letter in March? Okay.
Yep, they did.
All right.
Yep, and so I don't know if you should have this letter where I verified that.
Yeah, I see, I have it. I have
Yep,
it. Thank you.
mhm.
But I
Yes.
think it's good, I think it, again, for folks who don't have it, I think just to briefly
Sure, I'm
touch
happy
on it
to.
would be good. Thanks.
Yep. So we had to verify with HUD that we sought input from contractors regarding our contractor complaint policy, procedure, and practice. We held a couple of contractor meetings in order to make that happen. And I also had to verify that we retrained all of our contractors during those meetings as well when it comes to the contractor complaint policy and our contractor handbook. And we also made some improvements to our contractor handbook as well. Every contractor that comes into our program receives a contractor handbook that explains all of the processes.
Thank you.
Let's see here. I also had to verify that city's rehab staff received training regarding all of the new policies and procedures as well. We did that at staff meetings. And then also verifying that the most recently updated contractor complaint policy, procedure, and practice now appears in our updated contractor handbook.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. Do we have other questions or comments regarding finding number 3? All right, seeing none, if we could move on to finding number 4, although we touched a little bit on this already, bids not solicited from an adequate number of qualified sources.
Right. So, sometimes we have difficulty getting bids from enough contractors. We are supposed to get competitive bids. It's very difficult to do that, and sometimes when we're working with life-threatening emergencies inside people's homes, we may only get one bid, and HUD wants us to work hard to get competitive bids, but sometimes it's not possible to do that within a reasonable time frame to address what we consider to be a life-threatening emergency. When we decide what scope of work is going to be done at a home where there's a life-threatening emergency, we also put together a cost estimate, what we believe that's going to cost. So if we go out to bid and we maybe go out to bid multiple times but still only get one response, we have our cost estimate. If we can justify that one bid through our cost estimate, if it's reasonable, in other words, if it's reasonable, we may accept that bid. But HUD would prefer if we got multiple bids. Sometimes it simply isn't possible. Sometimes we have to respond faster.
First, we're going to start with Vice President Wood, and then we'll go to Councilman Garza.
Earlier, you gave an explanation of all the places that you've reached out to and trying to solicit contractors. Have you thought about doing a survey asking contractors why they've not bid or why they won't do work with the city?
No, but that's a great idea. We can sure do that.
You know, I mean, there has to be an explanation, whether it's the time of payment, whether it is the fact that the estimated bid that you're putting together is lower than what they believe the cost of doing business is today. I mean, there has to be some reasons why people are not involved in this. I also didn't hear you talk about the Builders Exchange. Have you reached out to the Builders Exchange?
I have not reached out to the Builders Exchange. The Builders Exchange is primarily a place where contractors look at large plans and
I'm aware of what the Builder Exchange is, but there are people that know people that are able to say, okay, this particular contractor doesn't have the staff to do this large development, but does have the staff to do something else. So I would encourage you to reach out to them as well.
we sure can. I'm happy to. As a matter of fact, I would welcome anyone's ideas.
And in talking to the trades, have you talked about the apprentice program and them having some ability to have apprentices work with journeymen to do some of the work that needs to be done on certain properties? This gives them a learning opportunity. You have qualified people overseeing them and, you know, as a work experience.
I have not looked into seeing if our trades contractors would be willing to work with a journeyman or with an apprenticeship program, but that's certainly a suggestion that could be made.
Well, I would point you in the hands of Councilmember Garza to give you some of the laborers union, we have painters union, we have a number of different ones that might be willing to work with the city on an issue like this.
I think that would be a really great idea, actually.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Are there other questions, comments? Councilman Garza.
Thank you, Council President. Just following up on Councilwoman Vice President Wood's comment. You know, there are a lot of contractors out there that state that they have apprenticeship programs, but then when you go to try to look to see how many actual apprentices they have registered in the state, there's like zero. So there are some unscrupulous contractors out there. But so when you talked about life-threatening emergencies where a contractor has to go into a home, I'm assuming the tenant, the homeowner's in there at that time?
Yes.
Now, when it comes to qualifications for those contractors, is there any qualifications to make sure that they are properly trained in safety? I mean, as far as like lead, paint, asbestos, if they're cutting into concrete, the silica dust isn't, going all over the house or the apartment and affecting everybody else. Is there any qualifications like that?
Yes, there are. Yep. HUD requires, well, we require and HUD requires that our contractors are properly licensed and are trained and certified in lead-based paint if they are handling those
And do you guys
surfaces.
follow up to make sure that
Asbestos.
the actual people that go to do the job, the contractor may have that certification, but does the workers that are actually doing the work, are you guys following up to make sure that they're qualified
Yes.
as well?
Yep, we are tracking that information in
Thank
the
you.
project files. Mhm.
All right. Are there others? All right. Well, Ms. Kimmel, Mr. McGrain, if there's nothing else to add, we certainly appreciate you all being here, and we will see you soon. Okay? All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That takes us to discussion action item C. This is a resolution of reappointment for Kenrick Hall as a CVB designee member to the Lansing Entertainment Public Facilities Authority Board of Commissioners. This is for a term to expire June 30th, 2025. In your package, you do have his application from back in 2020. You also have a resolution that we will consider in just a moment. Again, this is a reappointment. Mr. Kenrick Hall lives currently in Okemos, which is allowed for as a CVB representative to this particular board. He is currently the general manager of the Radisson Hotel, and has served in this position for a number of years now. I don't know much about Mr. Kenrick Hall, but we have had annually a liaison to the LEPFA Board of Directors, and so I know a number of you folks have actually served alongside him. That being said, I'm going to turn the floor over to Vice President Wood for a motion.
I I do know Mr. Hall, and I would move the reappointment of Mr. Hall to the CVB board.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor for Mr. Kendrick Hall as the CVB designee for LEPFA. With that being said, is there further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That takes us to item D. This is a resolution, and this is an appointment, not a reappointment. So we're going to go ahead and invite Mr. Schertzing, who is in the gallery, into the well with us. Feel free to sit at the table, as you've seen folks before you do. Make sure the green light's on. You can pull that close. How's everything going with you today, sir? Good. I'm doing really well. I appreciate you being here. This is, council colleagues, this is a resolution of appointment for Mr. Eric Schertzing as an at-large member of the Board of Review, and the term would expire, if approved, June 30th, 2025. For folks at home and in the gallery, Board of Review here is essentially and makes decisions related to property value and assessment appeals. 3 members are appointed by the mayor. These are all at-large positions. They do serve, I believe they are 3-year terms. And there's a couple things that are unique to individuals that sit in these positions. One, I think, is important to discuss, and that the individual cannot hold any other public office or public employment in any local unit of government supported by property taxes. And then again, they must be citizens of the city. So with that being said, what we're going to do is we're going to turn the floor over to you to introduce yourself. Obviously, you know, you are very immersed in our community. Folks know, I don't think you're going to be able to share a lot of news that we're not in tune with. But that being said, we would like you to address why you are uniquely qualified for this position, why you want to serve in this position, and then we'll open it up for council comments and questions. Okay? All right. Yep.
Appreciate that. I'm Eric Schertzing. I was former Ingham County Treasurer, Ingham County Chief Deputy Drain Commissioner, and other public appointments for many years. In my post-county life, I live at 322 Pierre Marquette, just down the road a little bit. That's my permanent location.
Is your light on? I think Faith is coming down to me.
Oh, there, oh,
Much better.
see, that works really well.
Well, I think she kept turning it up because
Eric Schertzing, former Ingham County Treasurer, Land Bank Chair, and Chief Deputy Drain Commissioner in Ingham County. 322 Pierre Marquette is my current residence and where I vote from and live. You know, I certainly think the years in property management in the Treasurer's office and the Drain Commissioners has familiarized myself in a pretty intimate and detailed way in the valuation of property, the processes. You know, I'm always looking to serve and give back to the community. The Board of Review is a fairly involved entity with the March, July, and December board. But life is a matter of scheduling and reserving out those times. You know, I don't know what other information people would have. I think 21 years as county treasurer probably is more than sufficient background to be able to serve the citizens in the city well in this position.
All right, we certainly appreciate that. Very quickly, just so to reiterate, 322 Pierre Marquette, that is your primary address where you live, correct?
That's where I vote
Okay.
from, yeah.
And you moved to 322 Pierre Marquette earlier this year, correct?
Beginning of the year.
Okay,
yeah.
so just a very quick question. I believe I know the answer, but I know there were some concerns. If we could have the city attorney just discuss very quickly, when we talk about elected officers in the city of Lansing, the charter requires that we actually live within the city, and if it's, as an example, a ward representative within the ward for a year upon taking office. And so does that apply to our boards and commissions? And if not, why?
It does apply. Generally, it's called a durational residency. It applies to boards and commissions under the charter. Obviously, doesn't affect extra charter appointments like authorities and all that. There is one exception, and that's in this position, Board of Review. There is no durational residency. As far as I can tell, and our office can tell, that's the only board or commission that doesn't have a durational residency. And we have so opined.
Okay, I appreciate that. Are there questions or comments from the body? Seeing none, Vice President Wood.
Thank you, President Hussein. At this time, I would move the resolution to be voted on this evening for the appointment of Eric Schertzing to an at-large member of the Board of Review.
All right, there's a motion on the floor for the discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Mr. Schertzing, sorry, if you are able to stay for tonight's meeting, we can certainly work to get you sworn in after council deliberation. If not, you are able to contact the city clerk's office as early as tomorrow morning and schedule a time to be sworn in, either in City Hall or at the SWAC. Okay?
I will need to schedule. I have a county treasurer's meeting for my land bank world that I'm involved in, but thank you, your honorable
And to your
acquaintances,
earlier
for the
point, you
opportunity to
certainly
serve.
are dedicated. We appreciate it. All right. Thank you so much. That takes us to actually a couple resolutions that pertain to the same thing. So items E and F both deal with resolutions regarding a ballot proposal. This is the Lansing Township residents requesting annexation of the city of Lansing. We have one resolution that pertains to Area A, and we have another resolution that pertains to Area B. Just to give you a little bit of background, we did have 119 residents in the Lansing Township part of Groesbeck that is fully encircled by the city of Lansing requesting to be annexed in the city of Lansing. That request came not too long ago. And so if it seems like we're fast tracking, it's because we are up against some deadlines with the county. And again, this request just came through recently. We've had a number of questions regarding other sections of the township. What makes this section unique is that it is the only section, there's 5 essentially non-contiguous sections of Lansing Township, but 4 sections actually border other municipalities and are not fully encircled by the city of Lansing. So that is one thing that essentially makes this unique. What we have before us today are a couple of resolutions. They were referred to us on the 25th. And speaking to the earlier time crunch, we actually have to have something submitted if we see fit. We have to have something submitted by the August 16th deadline that the state has put forth to actually get these issues to our county clerks to be placed on the ballot. This is, a number of us have vetted this pretty closely. We've asked a number of questions. A number of pundits have weighed in. This is pretty unique, as we can tell. I don't think there's really anything that's been a precedent maybe the last 20 to 30 years in the state of Michigan. And again, it deals with the sheer size that we're looking to potentially annex, or that we're being asked to allow the voters in Lansing Township to annex. It deals with the number of residents, but it also deals with the fact that there's this island annexation aspect. There are some things we know, however. Number one, again, 119 residents have come forward with this request through a letter. They've cited things such as mismanagement and increasing taxes in the township as their reasons for the request. We believe that somewhere north of 2,100 residents live in the area that could potentially be annexed. The part of state statute, and I'll actually have the city attorney speak to this in just a minute, the part of the state statute being used for this ballot initiative would allow all eligible voters within that proposed annexed area to vote, but nobody in the city of Lansing would actually have this on their ballot and be able to vote or weigh in through a ballot initiative. There's actually a piece of state statute that says that a portion of a charter township that is contiguous on all sides with the city may be annexed by that city with the approval of a majority of the electors in that portion of a charter township. What we're going to do is first turn the floor over to Jim Smirka, our city attorney. He's going to speak to some of the legal aspects of this state statute that allows for this, why we have 2 resolutions in front of us tonight as opposed to 1. And then obviously we'll open it up for council comments and questions. And then what I'm going to do is turn the floor over, at my understanding, we'd asked a few other individuals to be here, both Sharon Frischman as well as Desiree Kirkland, neither could be here. So my understanding is Jane DeSessa, the chief of staff, is actually going to take a crack at answering the questions that we have actually, and some of those questions unique to our mind. I think some of those questions have come from our constituents, and then a number of those, frankly, have come from news reporting, where it's, folks have been candid that, we just don't have the answers to these questions yet, so we're certainly hoping that we have some answers tonight. And if Mayor Shore, if you want to jump in, you want to take that on, that's fine. But we'll get to you in a minute. That being said, what we're going to do is go and turn the floor over to Mr. Smirka.
Thank you, Mr. President. You are correct. The annexation law does not have a lot of activity in the courts, and it goes back a long way. Without getting deep into the history, it really has its roots in the Home Rule City Act, where you would expect it to be because that act applies to municipal corporations like Lansing. In the 70s or late 70s, there was the creation of what was known as the State Boundary Commission, and then there were amendments to the Home Rule City Act. After that, is to say, basically, you could go to the State Boundary Commission, or you could use the Charter Township Act. So some of the issues that are common to annexations is land must be adjacent and contiguous. There must be proportionality. In other words, you can't make just something that goes out ad infinitum. You can't have an enclave that's created in a foreign territory. By foreign, I mean another jurisdiction. So in this case, with the request that was made by the residents, it was a general petition, but it's not a petition in the statute, in the Charter Township Act. What's controlling here is the Charter Township Act. And we fashioned your proposed resolution so that we could lay out the legal framework, exactly how this works. So the section, there are 4 or 5 sections in the Charter Township Act that determine how you can annex or how an annexation can occur. The one that applies here in each case is the third, where the land is surrounded by the city, and it's an island. And according to the Charter Township Act, all that's required is a resolution of the city, Lansing City Council, and a vote of the majority of the electors in that area. And again, this does not require a petition. Basically, a resolution, you determine action through your resolutions. In each case, it's an island. If you adopt these resolutions, and by the way, some of the newspapers are reporting a 6-vote item. This is a 5-vote item. So if you adopt these resolutions, it would then be submitted to the county clerk for placement on the ballot. I mean, that's basically the format for all of this.
Okay, and so just to be clear, on the first whereas of the resolution, it says the Michigan Charter Township Act provides for the elimination of freestanding islands of township property completely surrounded by a city through annexation by methods. The second whereas says one such annexation method is, I guess my question, is there a method that contemplates city residents actually having an opportunity to weigh in?
Yes. I'm sorry. And I forgot to mention there are other methods of annexation, like Act 425, which we have entered into a lot, Meridian Township, DeWitt, Delta. And then there's the Urban Cooperation Act, which allows for sharing of services. That they come under the rubric of annexation. There are other methods, for example, and again, it's in the Charter Township Act, which is Michigan Compiled Laws 42.34. There's a requirement for petitions where 20% of the electors may petition, actually file a formal petition. There is a provision where the township and the charter and the city could get together to agree. If the township is populated, you need a petition of 20% of the registered voters in the area, and then votes of electors in the city, which is a majority in each. You could go to the State Boundary Commission and petition State Boundary Commission. That does not require that requires a resolution of City Council, or the owners of the land can petition, or the 20% of the registered voters in the land can petition the State Boundary Commission, or 10% of the entire population of the township can go to the State Boundary Commission. One of the hazards with the state that we could determine as a legal hazard is once you go to the State Boundary Commission, they have free reign to do a lot of other things with the property. So you may get a result that you didn't intend when you go to the State Boundary Commission. So I think I covered the area. If the land is vacant, there's another rule where you petition, the owner's petition, and then you have a resolution of the city council and township board. So these are all set forth now in the Charter Township Act. And again, I mentioned the citation, Michigan compiled laws. If you want to go to the legislative site, it's 42.34. And the one that is being used in both these resolutions is subsection 3.
Okay, and I appreciate that. Now, I guess I'll just be, to preface my next comment, just very generally, I've long been supportive of the idea of taking a look at this, and not, I've long struggled to understand the purpose, to be honest with you, of Lansing Township and these floating, non-contiguous sections. That being said, the township right now is financially underwater. We know that. There are a number of questions that we've asked. I know Mayor Shore and Mr. Sessa will address those in a moment. But what I struggle with is us using the part of state statute that we're using, because we're not, and I think a number of commenters tonight referenced the fact that this feels like it's being fast-tracked. It is. And what's a little bit different about something like this is that we are being asked essentially to represent the entire city of Lansing in this matter, as opposed to saying, you know what, we have some information, hopefully we'll have some more information before absentee ballots go out, and in the November election, we have opportunities to use our mediums to convey information as it comes in, and then folks get the opportunity to decide. We're being asked to decide this today on behalf of all 115,000 plus residents of the city of Lansing. So I'm struggling a little bit that the part of state law we're using does not contemplate this actually going before the city's electorate. With that being said, do we have other questions or comments with regards to the legal process? Vice President Wood.
This is not the legal process, but I do want to make a comment. At probably 5:25 or maybe 5:26 as we sat here, Mark passed out the answers to the questions that were submitted earlier to the administration, and I must tell you that I am upset over the fact that I'm trying to conduct business and read through these at the same time. I would have hoped, whether it meant working all weekend or not, that the administration would have put this document together and had gotten it to us first thing this morning so that we could have gone through and had an opportunity to read through this. So I do want you to know that my displeasure over the fact that we are dealing with this, this information at this late hour.
Yeah, and I would echo those sentiments. We did try, for full transparency, we did try to get our questions to the administration in a way that would allow them, to vet and to consider and in a timely way to get this back to us. That being said, what I'd like, if you want to address that, that's completely fine. But then what I'd like to do is actually have you go through the questions and the answers for not only us, but also the folks that we're going to represent in this vote. Thank you.
Oh, I'm happy to. Thank you, Mr. President. We got the questions, the full set of questions Thursday afternoon. We had folks working on them Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and today, right up until the meeting. We were sitting in the office today, right up until about 5 o'clock, 5:15, writing these up. So we can't send you something we don't have. And we got it Thursday late, or Thursday afternoon, and we were working on it. I was on the phone with County Treasurer Alan Fox yesterday afternoon, getting some of the details. We worked on it. Our staff did a lot of work on this. We had to get answers from Sharon Frischman about assessing, about Desiree Kirkland, from Brian McGrain, from Andy Kilpatrick, from Jim Smirtka, from Ellery Sosby, from Brian Sturdivant. Jane and Mark and Scott Bean worked very hard on this, and this is not all we had to do. We have many things going on, but we certainly prioritized this from Thursday afternoon all through Friday, over the weekend, and today. And we did our very best to get you the answers, and I'm happy to go through these one by one, but our staff, our department directors, they worked very hard on this, and I am proud of the answers they put together to all of the questions that were here.
All right, Councilwoman Spitzley.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I can sympathize with the amount of work that needs to be put into this. I'm supportive of this, so let's just start there. I'm supportive of this. But I'm going to agree with Councilmember, or with Vice President Wood. You know, we knew about this 2 weeks ago at the last council meeting. So for us, for council, it would have seemed like the homework and the questions, because to me, they're reasonable questions, that information would have been brought to us then. So I'm gonna take the administration to task about bringing in stuff at the last minute. I am supportive of this. I'm supportive of I'm supportive of it. I think we should do the whole thing, and I've been in the newspaper for that. But for us to, review information, for us to be able to, provide information to our constituents, it has to be timely. And if we know about it weeks ago, then the tax questions, the debt question, all of that stuff's been swirling around in the media. And it seems to me that those are reasonable questions that, if you know this council, you know that those are the questions that are gonna be asked. And so, I'm reading this stuff. I think it's good information and it answers a ton of questions, but like Vice President Wood, I'm trying to conduct business as well while I'm trying to read this because I know we have a short timeline. So I'm just gonna reiterate my disappointment that the information that I think has been out there, that I think that are pretty standard, no-brainer questions, weren't brought to us before this. So, and that's what I'm gonna say about that.
Sure, and not to beat a dead horse, I think part of the problem is, Mayor Short, we started having conversations about this, I believe it was July 24th. You and I, we talked over the phone. I got you the initial set of questions at that time. You provided me the information that you had at that time. Much of the information that you provided in those answers has changed, since changed, which is completely okay. But we also started to onboard questions at that time. When you talk about Thursday at 12:54, that was the last set of questions to come in. But frankly, based on the questions that had been coming in with regards to the weeks previous to, it should have been a rather quick turnaround. That being said, what's done is done. We have the questions in front of us. We have the answers in front of us. We do have other issues before us tonight that we certainly, that deserve our attention. And so if we could go through the questions and the answers so that we can appropriately vet this, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, you've got most of the answers, and all of us have discussed this at one point or another. The only thing that has changed, and I'll get to that in a minute, is that we had originally anticipated having to pay off the debt if the city was going to pay it in 3 years. We got a spreadsheet over the weekend from County Treasurer Alan Fox, who said that debt repayment for the township debt is over 18 years. That was a big change. And again, he had trouble getting that information, and he got that information to us when he got it. And as soon as we got it, we started parsing through that, and I think I texted everybody here either this morning or this afternoon. As soon as I was able to put that together, I sent it all to you all, because that was a big change, and to my mind, that was a change for the good. So from the public, and for those in the audience, according to the county treasurer, who wishes he could be here but is at a conference right now, but is going to be sitting with our staff later this week, there is an anticipated $33 million total township debt that actually sticks with the residents. On top of that, there's an additional $13 million of DDA tax increment financing debt that does not move with the residents. So it's $33 million that would move. This area of the township, the Groesbeck, Frandorish area, is 20% of the township. So 20% taxable value of $33 million is about $6.6 million. Now again, at first we thought we had to pay that all off up front. Turns out we don't. That over 18 years, it's about $250,000 a year. There is a schedule that I think we can provide to you, that was sent over from the county treasurer. It's roughly $250,000 a year. It's maybe $300 one year, maybe $200 one year, but it averages $250,000 a year. We will get you that schedule. I know we have it somewhere. So Mark, I don't know if you can grab that. You got that? All right, if you can make copies of that, thank you, Jane. We will get you that schedule. But we also know that it's about $1.5 million a year in revenues. which is about $1.25 million in property tax and about $250,000 a year in income tax, and that comes from our assessor and our treasurer. So generally, if we pay off the debt with the taxes that come in every year, we would, in essence, be making in new revenues about $1.25 million, because the other $250,000 would go towards paying off the debt over the 18 years. That is the averages. Again, I will get you the chart. That is the big change. In terms of your questions, I mean, the estimated annual tax revenue, property tax and income tax, that's your first question here. Sharon and Desiree gave us their methodology, so you can look through that, but that is the answer. You asked how many properties are rental properties, and the answer is it's about 700 parcels. We think there are 576 single family, of which 90 are rentals, 37 apartment buildings totaling around 724 units. The question on what does the township owe on debt and how much of that will we take in?
Can I stop you real quick?
Yeah.
So have you had conversations within code in terms of what they would need to do?
Code?
with regards to
That's at the end. That
Is
was,
it? Okay.
that was a later question.
Perfect, thank you.
So code, police, fire, that's at the end. So we answered the debt question. I'm going to also clarify, when I say 33 million, that is the maximum possible exposure for us. We are still checking to see how much of that is in final judgment, how much of that is bond. Again, the county treasurer is going to get back to us on some of that. So that is the maximum possible exposure. It could be less, but that is the maximum. We want to have the highest possible exposure. Additionally, we know that in the latest budget, state budget, there were school consolidation grants. So we will certainly be approaching our legislators about local government consolidation grants. This is something that just hasn't been done in a very long time. I think the newspaper said since the UP did it like 20, 30 years ago. This just hasn't been done. But we will certainly talk to our legislators about similar local consolidation grants to see if we can reduce that burden, as it would be a consolidation. There used to be consolidation grants through the Department of Treasury, but those expired a few years ago. I want to say under Governors Granholm and Snyder, if I remember correctly, but those have expired. You asked about assessments that the township members are paying now. Again, this talks about any benefit that was specially assessed follows the parcel. That's streets, sidewalks, drains, public works. And then the township would delete the annexed parcels from their assessment roll, and we would create a new roll matching for those parcels and those amounts, and we would collect and then pay it over to the township. So it all basically equals out. And again, we have Desiree on speed text if there are questions, and I will text her because she is at a conference. The following questions, if necessary, the escrow questions, we really didn't answer the escrow questions. I'm happy to answer them, and it turns out escrow is the wrong word. We were never really going to put money in escrow. We would have listed it as part of our debt in the same way we do when we issue debt. We would have added this as part of our debt that needs to be paid, but again, the escrow questions are now moot because...
No, and I appreciate that, but the only reason why that was included, that language in the
You didn't know at the
question
time.
was initially, when we talked, you used that.
I did. That is all on me. I used the wrong word. I used escrow, and it turns out it wasn't escrow. It was making it part of the debt. Certainly, we could choose to do that if we wanted to as a government, to just pay it all up front, but that would not be my proposal to you, but that's certainly an option to pay it all off and then take it in and pay through the debt. But again, that's, in my mind, it's immaterial. If the township increases the debt, would that carry over to these properties? No, unless the debt were to be increased before December 31st. We do know there's about $8 million being challenged right now in the tax tribunal. The same properties that challenged last year, I think it was Walmart, Sam's Club, I'm not sure who else. They challenged and were successful, and they're challenging again, and it's about $8 million, but we do not expect that to be settled before December 31st. So if this annexation is put on the ballot and passes, then the residents won't be affected by that. if there's a lawsuit, this is a good Jim question, but certainly we would defend it in the way we would defend anything else. We would get with, we would check and see our capacity internally. If not, we would use outside counsel. We have money in the budget for outside counsel for lawsuits in the same way we do anything else. And any other questions there, and Jim can certainly answer those. I already talked about the Michigan legislature writing consolidation grants. The estimated cost in dollars to provide services such as code, public safety, and public services. Thank you. According to Brian McGrain, for ED&P, we would attach a zoning designation to the area, and then any future planning or zoning actions would come through ED&P. There are several multifamily buildings in the area, although Brian said that they generally tend to be pretty well kept up, but certainly we would have code that would go out there. These would come to us new and require inspection into our rental pool as soon as they come in. So that could potentially require new staff. We'd have to see, but also remember that anytime we have inspections, we get fees. So the fees would pay for the inspections, for all the new inspections, for all the new numbers we'd be putting in. And then building permits are the same thing. They'd come through our office, and then any other ancillary work. But
Just-
again.
just very quickly. Yeah, and so that was, and that's why I asked the question, because it wasn't specific in here. You're talking about, unless I'm reading this wrong, you're talking about 90 single-family rentals that would be on a 3-year rental inspection process. You're talking about 724 multifamily rentals that would be on a 2-year inspection process. And with all due respect to our code office, because I think they do great work, they're underwater now. I mean, they're struggling. We know that. There's, what I would consider to be, code issues with regards to rental, unsafe living conditions all across the city. Again, I don't think that's a fault of necessarily code. I just don't know that we're adequately resourced, and whether or not, our funding numbers are where they need to be for what we have right now. Of course, that's always difficult to determine because we have this kind of revolving door of, with regards to transiency and retirements and things like that. But when you're adding on, some 914 or 814 units, I would think that we would be saying, yes, absolutely, we're going to have to enhance.
We would certainly look to add another position. Now, again, the other issue is that getting code compliance officers is tough. We can certainly look and see what we can do to add another position and how we can continue to recruit. It's just a whole different story. But yes, that would certainly be, we would have more that has to be looked at initially when they first come in, certainly.
Vice President Wood.
I would think that we could potentially be putting ourselves in a legal issue if we didn't treat these properties the same as we treat our current code and properties here. So it would mean essentially that if this was voted on by the township residents in November and it was approved, that you have all these unregistered rentals that have not gone through the inspection process, where we're citing landlords who are not keeping up with their code issues. And so we would have to migrate these in almost immediately to be able to make sure that we didn't come up with a class action suit by other landlords saying that they were being treated differently.
Well, it wouldn't be immediately. It would be over 2 months. It would pass in November, and then it would take effect December 31st. So it would be 2
Well,
months.
semantics, you know what I mean.
No, we'd have to get folks out there and get them inspected, and then if there's any deficiencies, they'd get the same number of days to rectify it. They'd go through the same process. We would certainly have to prioritize getting code inspection folks out there. We've added code folks, and we would certainly get code folks out there. Again, this isn't like it's very far away. This is in Groesbeck, so this is right where we have a whole other half of the neighborhood. So we're not going into Delta Township. We've got folks in that area, but yeah, we'd have to get folks into Ravenswood and wherever else to inspect in those 2 months coming up to December 31st. Sure.
Does that satisfy your question or comment? No?
No.
Is there a follow-up?
I think we're missing the point that I'm saying here. I realize you know, the figures and the things that you've given us, but council's gonna need some kind of plan as to, okay, if this passes, if you put it on the ballot and this passes, that December, we're sending out letters to all rental properties, that they have until January to pay for their inspections, that we'll be setting up inspections, you know, in February, March, and April, even if it's, you know, a 3-month window, but to be able to demonstrate, you know, and Jim is over there with a half smile, and if nothing more than to be able to demonstrate that we are not treating them differently. I lived through the Bolt issue. You know, when, you know, lawsuits were brought over the fact that we were treating different citizens differently. And I just want to make sure that we're not falling into that same category with this.
We will have a plan to notify and inspect.
Are there other questions, comments? All right, so we are on number 11, and we are
Well, and the next-
transitioning to fire.
Yep, next to are fire and police. We gave you the breakdown basically as estimates. But I will caution everybody to remember that we right now have mutual aid. So we send police and fire into Groesbeck, just like the township sends police and fire into Lansing as needed. If you break it down just to the numbers, you see the breakdown that Chief Sturdivant and Chief Sosby gave us at about $440,000 for fire and about $400,000 for police. But again, these are based on if we were to be taking this on completely new, and we are doing mutual aid, so there would be some reduction in that amount, but I don't know what that is.
All right, thank you. Councilman Daniels.
Thank you, Mr. President. Have you spoke with the Township Fire Department and police to make sure that the mutual aid would continue? I want to make sure that we're not going to be bailed on.
We have not, but I will tell you that it sounds to me like they at one point indicated that they would bail, and then when challenged on that, they reversed course. We have heard nothing about cancellation of our mutual aid agreements. We sign them every year. They are in place right now, and we have not heard anything about canceling those. But again, that goes both ways. You know, we certainly answer in 5 different sections of the township when needed, and they answer in the city when needed in the same way we all do with Delta and Meridian and East Lansing. And it's mutual aid. It's sending an officer or a firefighter when there's somebody at risk or hurt, and I would be very surprised if they were to cancel mutual aid with us.
All right, with regards to roads and city services.
Yeah, now Kilpatrick gave us kind of all of it on roads. With roads, the roads stay where they are right now because it's under the Act 51 formula, so we actually wouldn't take on those roads. It's not to say we couldn't request them and be given them from the county, but as it turns out, without a request, the roads stay where they are, so they would continue to be plowed by the county unless we ask for the roads. In terms of trash service, that doesn't change. People can either stay with Granger if they want, or they can sign up with the city. But it's the same as any other resident right now. They can sign up for city trash, or they can stay with what they have. Recycling would start on those streets, but they would also pay the same fee that we all do. So that would be equal to everyone else. There were questions about, we dug down into this one. We're not sure about the trees. We're looking at the trees to see, do they become ours? Are they the township's trees? That's one thing I don't have an answer for you on. We're just not sure yet if it's the Ingham County Road Department or if there are trees. So we're working on that. And then if the roads are transferred, we would receive the money for any telecommunications in the right-of-way. We would be responsible for permitting all driveway approaches and any other work in the public rights-of-way. And we're working through the cable franchise and associated fees. The Board of Water and Light return on equity payment to us would increase because it's based on fees derived within the annexed section. Well, we think it would. We're gonna, we'll get with the Board of Water and Light to ensure that. And then again, I mentioned recycling and yard waste. Kilpatrick said we easily have the ability to extend those services with existing staff and equipment, especially because we're basically there anyway. The trash truck goes up Chester, stops and turns around rather than going in a circle. So we're basically there anyway. And again, recycling is paid through an annual fee. In terms of, we keep getting questions about the fire station and the park. The park that's there, Councilman, do you have a question? Okay. The park that's there would remain township territory, in the same way that Grand River Park in Lansing is our park, but in the township, or Waverly was in Delta Township. The park would remain township territory, so it would be up to them to maintain. The fire station that's there would remain a township fire station. It's their property. They can respond to calls at Eastwood and Michigan Avenue. Certainly, we're happy to have a conversation with them about that, as it would make efficiencies a lot better. But just by default, those two remain township property.
Very quickly, Vice President Wood.
On the roads and the fact that if they remained Ingham County, they would be responsible for repairs and plowing. Have you reached out to Ingham County to determine whether they would decide to bill us for
For us to take it on,
for the work that they're doing on those roads?
it's their road. They can't bill us, it's their road. I mean, we can certainly talk to them about the potential of taking it over if we choose, but it's their road. So they can't bill us for maintaining their road. It doesn't change unless the Act 51 formula changes at the state, at MDOT. But certainly we can have that conversation with the county if we decide we would rather take that on. But for now, it's their road. But I think council has to do that because roads are in the purview of council.
All right, before you go on, if you are at home and you're reviewing and you're expecting to see the city council meeting, we are in fact still in committee of the whole. We do have a few other issues to vet. We will then, we will adjourn, take a 5-minute recess, and then, or break, I should say, and then we will convene our city council meeting. Thank you.
Yep, looks like there are 4 more. Well, we talked about the park already in question 12. Question 13, the drain project. There's no change, according to Kilpatrick, there's no change in payments for the drain assessment. However, there will be process changes. If the township is already assessed, then the residents would just pay the assessment from the township. And these are the residents in the Montgomery drain area. And if the township hasn't assessed, then they would come over to the city and they would pay our assessment, but then our percentage of the assessment would likely change because we'd have more residents in the area. So it would be the same responsibility of the residents as it is now. It's just a matter of who assesses, whether it's us or the township, and the percentages. This area is separated. It is, the county drain commissioner maintains the storm sewers, and we can take them over if we choose to, but we'd have to have that conversation with the county drain commissioner. How much will this add to street lighting and fire hydrants? Lansing Township has 65 fire hydrants in the area. Yearly maintenance is $630 per hydrant, making the annual cost $41,000. And the BWL already maintains street lights in this area and would continue without an expected added cost. So the total added cost would be $41,000 for the hydrants, but then again, we would get an increased return on equity. So that would, I don't know the exact number on what that would be yet. So, I mean, all in all, the numbers in terms of revenues favor the city on this, but there are certainly lots of issues that we're happy to continue to talk about. Should this pass in November, we'll have some final decisions we have to make, but we put a lot of time into this. Certainly it's last minute. Again, like you said, Mr. President, we got it. We immediately gave it to you and acted on it, got the questions answered that we could, and now we're answering all the additional questions that both council and the media are raising.
All right, I certainly appreciate that.
Jane,
Questions
did I
or
miss
comments
anything?
from the body?
Did I?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council. Mayor, you did an excellent job. All the questions you responded to as we had addressed. And again, I just simply want to recognize our staff too for working hard on this. And City Council, please be assured, as soon as we receive this information, everyone, I spoke with the City Attorney's Office late in the evening. I worked with the City Attorney, with the Finance Department, of course, with our staff, with the Deputy Chief of Staff, and also with our Communications Director as well. So we did not take this lightly, and we did our best to answer them as quickly as we could.
No, and to be clear, I know that a considerable amount of work has went into vetting this by the administration. I appreciate that. My issue, again, remains the fact that we just received the answers, and I understand why. But the administration, or at least the leader of the administration, did come out as a vocal proponent of this. And so I would have expected that we had vetted some of these these issues already, and had answers to these issues already, if we're going to take public positions such as what was taken. That being said, do we have other questions or comments from the body? All right, on resolution E, and so this deals with Lansing, City of Lansing Area A. Vice President Wood.
This is a clarification before I move this. This would be allowing this to go on the ballot in Lansing Township, and the residents that live in this area would be the ones voting on this. No City of Lansing person has the ability to vote on this. It's only those residents that are living in Lansing Township in Section A and B that we would be moving on this. And if they approve this, then as the mayor indicated, it would be a month after that approval at the ballot, a month or so, that then this would switch over and become the City of Lansing. One question I do have for legal, is there any potential that if somewhere down the line, people decided they wanted to leave Lansing, is this something that's reversible?
There's no reversible feature in the statute that we could tell.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Shore, did you want?
Yeah, having worked on this at the Municipal League, there is a provision in the law called detachment, and it's fairly extensive. I'm sure we can get you the information, but it is an extremely extensive process.
Okay. So with that, we have proposal A, and I would move to put the resolution on the agenda for tonight, and this would be approving having it placed on the ballot for Lansing Township.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. Councilwoman Spitzley.
And I'm sorry, this is kind of a crazy question, but what ward is this? Is this going to be Ward?
First.
Whatever. Thank you. I was just wondering.
Not a problem.
My God.
All right, is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Vice President Wood.
Okay, the resolution before us is for Section B, and I would move that this be put on the Lansing Township ballot for November, dealing with the annexation of the properties within this area. And this, again, will be acted on this evening.
All right, there's a motion on the floor for the discussion. Ward 1. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That takes us to, let's see, closed session. Vice President Wood.
Thank you, President Hussein. Pursuant to MCL 15-268, paraphrase C, I hereby move that we recess into closed session to consult with the city attorney in connection with the following specific pending litigation. And open meetings would have a deterrent financial effect on the litigation or the settlement of this position of the City of Lansing concerning the case Birdwell versus City of Lansing.
All right, there is a motion on the floor for the discussion. Clerk Bolt.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes.
Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson. Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Daniels. Motion carries 6-1.
Looks like it. All right, we're going to go ahead and reconvene at 7:20. The last item for today, today's Committee of the Whole meeting is agenda item number 7. This is a discussion on the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget priorities. This is something that we do annually. It's actually required per the charter. What we have to actually do is put forth a statement of policies and priorities, and we have to convey that to the mayor by October 1st per the charter. And I always think about it, to simplify it in my own head, as kind of council's wish list. to send out to the mayor so that as they work to put forth the following year's fiscal year budget, that they can work to include some of the things that we'd like to see in that budget into their recommended executive budget that they have to actually get to us by the fourth Monday in May. And so with that being said, we actually will have this up as an agenda item on all of our standing committees, including Committee of the Whole. And so we wanted to make sure that you were aware that that's going to be appearing on those agendas, that you had time to consider, to reflect, to review what we've done in the past, and then come forward with some ideas and solutions to so many of the issues that we've been hearing about as a body. Are there any questions or comments? All right, what we're going to do is we are going to adjourn. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we will begin our city council meeting. We are adjourned.